Chedan Timbe Dede Malupa Beme Lungi Drubraj Tena Tamche Dan Techi Pardo Nekaba Tamche Tu Rese Kyamne Lama Keleme Tukje Chingi Dala Sikso Solo Gongyab Drewe Nyamta Dachala Jetsun Lame Tukje Rabgongne Kudan Sungi Nawa Dralme Tu NgalSo Nyongwe Kesan Topra Sho Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Da Drame Cheki Pela Longche Chin Sadan Lamge Yente Rabzon Dorje Change Kopa Nyur Top Shoyo Pakyuke Kudan Nga Pakyuke Tudan Dage Yerme Chikto Chingi Lo Makyuke Kudan Dage Lo Makyuke Sundan Dage Nga Makyuke Tudan Dage Ye Yerme Chikto Chingi Shipu ki chushi me to Tramare rabalinga shi Ni de gempadi Sange shintu Mikte ulvarki Shingla Che Opar Sho Yidam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kam Niryatayami Sangye Chedan Soge Chonam La Chanchu Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chin Dagi Chinso Gibe Sonam Ki Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kep Dagi Jinso Gibes Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kep Suchi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupara Sho.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfection, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo yal hai ke da ludan jing ke drubun da mi ke nam da drowa kuin ke dranam chi tsampa tham che ke tu da ki che ten. Buongiorno.
Good morning. I was remembering a friend. I had a couple opportunities to be together with him. He was an Australian priest who taught phenomenology at the university. We met each other in 1997 when we were on when we were traveling in Tibet with Lama Michel, and we would spend afternoons talking. We spent a lot of time together, and he made me understand something. Maybe I was about 14, 15 years old at the time. He was telling me why we study what we study at school, what the function is of studies. And he told me two things that really touched me. One was one reason why we study what we study. I mean, so many notions that then often are not used again. He said, at school, we learn to unlearn. This means a lot because it reminds us that we're made of habits. And so what we create as a habit, we can maintain it. And in this case, it's not, sorry, at school we learn to learn, not unlearn. We learn to learn. So regardless of the subject, when I'm studying it, I'm learning to elaborate and learn it. Another important aspect, the greater my understanding and knowledge is, the deeper it is, the way I see the world becomes more profound. Because when we're in front of when we're faced with any situation, when we need to judge something, not judgment like what is it, no, when we really need to discern, when we need to attribute a name to something and say this is this, this is that, it's what we do all the time, really, even if we're not aware of it. When we do this, the resources that we use to attribute a value, to recognize something and to discern, it's not Google or GPT. We don't have Wikipedia or some kind of external hard disk. What we have in that moment, we have our own understandings, our own experiences. That's what we have in that moment. And according to what our experiences are, what our knowledge is, then the way that we perceive others totally changes based on that. There's a very important concept. We're not able to see. And when I say see, it's not just seeing with our eyes, but actually perceive. We're not able to perceive what we're not ready to see or what we don't want to see. So what I see, what I perceive is not what is, but is a reflection of my knowledge, my experience, of, of what I see. Once something that was explained to me that really touched me and changed my way of seeing the sea, especially the whales, the ocean life, the whales. If there's something that's important for us, I'd say it's breathing. For every three breaths, at least one depends on whales, or more specifically on the feces of whales. I mean, the whales eat a lot, and as a consequence, they defecate a lot. And as they're doing their business, they're not still. They're swimming kilometers and kilometers and kilometers throughout the ocean, and they're actually fertilizing as they swim, giving nutrients to plankton that actually are responsible for, some say half, some say a third of the oxygen that there's in the air. So if it weren't for the plankton and weren't for the whales, we'd have a hard time breathing. That's just information. But now when we see a whale, our way of seeing a whale changes. And that's valid for so many things. And what happens is, the more we're able to have a wider view of things, then it's easier to go beyond the obvious and to deepen. When we leave our curiosity open, understand that what I'm able to see and understand is just a small part of what can be understood. What I see is not what is, it's what I can see in this moment. Our experience, let's use this analogy of seeing, but it's actually seeing, but it also that it includes all of our understanding. It's really quite conditioned. There's sometimes where we see what we can see, what we can see, what's in front of us, and sometimes we see what we want to see. Let me explain better. Let's say that I fight with someone, or there's some kind of situation of conflict. It can be a person, a religion, and a race. It can be another soccer team where there's the other, and I generate an inner feeling of anger, of aversion, of hatred. I will try to see in the other what justifies that feeling of hatred and anger, because actually we know that it's not really not good. We know that hatred, aversion, etc. is not something positive. I've never heard someone say, "Oh, hatred, how wonderful." I've never seen a culture or a religion that praises hatred. But there are many contexts where there's so much hatred that's justified by choosing to see something in a certain light. One chooses specifically to not see some aspects and to see others to justify that feeling. We do the same with desire, with envy, with jealousy, and this takes us to another aspect that I wanted to touch on today. The fact that in our seeing, in this seeing, perceiving the world, it's very difficult. It's possible, so there's hope, but it's very difficult. It's very hard for us to experience anything, see any person, if not through a self-reference, in reference to oneself, to the I and the mind, the self-centeredness, what I see, what I believe, what I feel, what according to me is how it works for me, etc., etc. So what happens is, if I have certain behavior, I'm lazy, for example, or I'm someone who's not at all organized, I'm talking about myself. Naturally, one tries to see the world by in justifying this kind of behavior. If I'm not flexible, if I'm rigid, I'm tense, I'll try to justify that as well. I'll try to see through that and say, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. Because let's say things how they are. I mean, normally we just don't want to work hard, right? And when we when we need to work hard, we need to work hard. But if we can choose, what do we choose? We choose not to work hard. And the fatigue that weighs more is not physical fatigue, but actually getting out of our comfort zone. And when we justify, when we're looking at the world, adapting it to our own conditioning and justifying it, that's our greatest zone of comfort. I don't know if that's clear. What's the consequence of doing that? If we have wonderful conditioning, great. What's interesting is those who have wonderful conditioning, they don't really do this. But if we have conditioning that is not good for us or good for others, keeping them, supporting them constantly, it's not good for us because we keep a certain conditioning, but it also creates situations of tension and conflict because coherence is lacking. A little bit like the lie. When someone tells a lie and wants to justify it and tries to even believe in it somehow because he's justifying also with himself, that is incoherent. And so it takes me to telling another lie to support another, and then I need to tell even another lie to support and it could happen that I get to the point where I'm not even able to discern what's true and what's a lie. If we try to uphold a feeling of aversion and hatred, how can I say this? Instead of not being right, we can break all the other commitments that we have to not be wrong, to not let go of being right, of being on the right side. It's a little bit like when we see two people arguing, and someone says the mirror should be here. No, the mirror should be here, there, until at a certain point, and the one who said the mirror should be here then says it should be there, and then the other person just says says the opposite, and they keep on arguing because at a certain point, where the mirror is not the issue. What's important is being right. It's crazy. I've seen situations where people argue, and at a certain point, they start talking. I mean, what they were arguing about, what their argument just is no longer part of the argument. I mean, they find something else to argue about, or they even agree on that, and they say, "Oh yeah, okay, that's true. This, but that other time, such and such." Because what's important is to be right, and it's really sad. It's ridiculous. Unfortunately, this happens on a micro level, but also on a macro level. I'm convinced that it's useless to talk about the macro when we're not able ourselves to change our micro. So let's come back to the micro. That's our reality and our relationship with others. What's something that's important is that when I see something, what I see is very limited. Very limited. For example, this flower tree, this robinia tree that makes the acacia flower, and it really, up until a short time ago, it was a difficult tree for me. It grows everywhere. It actually has thorns, and it always just disturbed me. I thought it was growing where it shouldn't grow, and then at a certain point, I started studying bees a little bit, and I see that among the trees that generate a kind of flowering for the bees, is among those type of beneficial trees and flowers, was listed this particular tree. And even these days you can see these beautiful fragrant white flowers, and these flowers are fundamental for many insects. So let's say that it went from being a tree that bothered me to being amazing, fantastic. And it just reminds me that what I see is limited. So I'm not seeing what is. I'm seeing what I know. It's a black locust in English, this robinia. So sometimes we see it in one way, and then we realize it's different. Yesterday there was a nice story. I was here in Bay, and I was at a certain. I was in this kind of specific context, and two people came by, and these two guys asked me for a photo, and people want to take pictures with me, and at first, and I invite everyone to do this. If somebody talks to us, just stop for a second, rewind and listen again. Maybe trying to and try to understand better. So and then I understood they didn't ask. They didn't want a picture of me. They wanted me to take a picture of them. And they were really, really happy. And then we said goodbye, and that's it. To say, when we see a situation, when we see another, very often we're just looking through our own conditioning. I mean, always, basically, and starting from the assumption that it's understanding that what I see is not the reality. It's what I'm able to see in this moment, and being able to open ourselves up to other possibilities is fundamental. I mean, if this is for the, even in this very banal story that I told you. And I was very, very happy that they didn't want a picture with me. They wanted a picture of themselves. I don't have to be the center of everyone's attention. But we need to allow ourselves to see things and say, okay, before I say this is like that, just a minute. Let me try to see from a different perspective. And once I was talking about this with a friend who was really I was in a very conflictual relationship with someone. And she said, what does it mean when you say things are relative and there are different ways of seeing things, the same thing? But what's the right one? This person, for example, in this situation, what I said at the time, and it worked at the time, and I believe it. I say it in a little bit like it's I say it in a hard way, but I think it could work. I mean, this can be many things. It can be a singing bowl. It can be a salad bowl. It can be a it can be a bowl to use, for dog food or during the night. So it could be many, many things, but it's not what it is. What is it? What is good for me? I mean, see, I said that it's not a nice way to say because it seems a little bit selfish, but let me give you another example. If someone acts with aggression towards me or has some kind of behavior that I don't like, a person can be an object of anger because I don't accept that someone acts that way, and I recognize it as the cause of my suffering, so I want to eliminate it. This object of anger, aversion, I can also see that same behavior, those same words in that way is a manifestation of that person's suffering, because there is no aggression or violence without there being suffering at the basis. I've never seen a person who's is peaceful and happy and balanced to act in an aggressive way. So seeing it in that way, I can generate the idea of wanting that person to be free from such suffering. So it becomes an object of compassion. Seeing it as an object of anger, is that coherent? Is it sustainable, this value that we attribute to it? Let's say yes, even though perhaps there's a little bit it's a little tricky because I'm saying that it's an object of my suffering when it really isn't. But can it also be an object of compassion? Yes. So the question isn't, is this person an object of anger or is this person an object of compassion? The question is, what is good for me? Anger and hatred, resentment, tension, and conflict, or love and compassion, respect, harmony, etc. What's good for me? And our body talks. You don't even need to go into discussions, ethical discussions. When we feel anger and hatred, how does our body react? Our cortisol increases, creates tension, inflammation, and over time, I mean, an anger that is upheld over time creates sickness, It affects our liver. That can create chronic inflammation because the cortisol is high, and in this chronic inflammation is a cause, also one of the causes of tumors. On the other side, love and gratitude that is upheld over a long period of time, does that create sickness? No. What's the reaction our body has when it feels love? Our blood pressure becomes more balanced. Our body is more harmonious. Everything works better. And hormones that are good for us, that increase, like oxytocin. So a love and gratitude felt over time brings to a healthy, balanced body. So what's good for me? Love and gratitude, or aversion, hatred, etc.? It's really quite obvious, isn't it? The difficulty that we have is that when we find ourselves in front of our object of anger and hatred, we try to justify why that situation, that person, that ethnicity, or whatever it is an object of that anger, and I'm a victim. It's not that I am labeling them such, but they are intrinsically bad, and I'm the victim here. And here we need to work on so many levels, but at least to try to remember that what I see is not what is, it's what I'm able to see. And if in this moment, if I see it with anger and hatred, that's what I'm able to see. But I open myself up for something different. I open up, I breathe, I try to widen my outlook and see things in a deeper way, and little by little I can change. It's like if I'm focused on something, and then little by little I take some steps backwards, and then I can see that same object for different points of view. Then I can go in and then focus on very specific aspects of it. But let's start with it's there is we do have a little bit of a problem here, but we can resolve it. But it's quite important and present in the life of everyone. Every day we have a certain amount of energy that's limited. I was listening to a scientist, a doctor, who was talking, and she was saying the main function of our brain is not to understand or to analyze or reason, but to manage our energy, and to understand where to use the energy of our body. For example, when there's a threat, the energy goes into our legs, into our hands, so that we can fight or run. So the energy that our body manages, that's the main function of our brain. On a first level of attention is what comes on a more coarse level to our five senses, our sight, our smell. It's that first impact when we come into contact with something. Every time I see something, I need inside to say yes, no, what is it? Is it? I need to discern, and I need to file, let's say, or choose. In the morning, let's say that I have 1,000 points when I wake up of energy, and every time that I need to make these kinds of choices, I lose a point. If I am constantly bombarded with information, it's a little bit like having, you have a work table before computers, remember? And let's say there was always paper. So someone brings me a piece of paper, I need to file it. So do I put it, or understand what it is? Is it important? Is it urgent? Can it be filed? Can it be thrown away? When I don't have anything else to file, I can take the important ones and read them and work on them. And every time we hear something or see something, those are just papers that are coming to our desk. So when we wake up to the time we go to bed, how much time do you have where you're not constantly just receiving information or filing information? Half of the time that you have? If we have a half an hour, that's already a lot. What happens though? We live in a time where we receive just a frightening amount of information. And we consume an enormous amount of information to file, to organize, and not just file, but the times that I'm finally able to read that document. Oh, okay, I need to read this document, otherwise I'll be fired. And then and if I have those 5 minutes to read, then another file arrives that I need to file. But as I'm filing that other file, I need to remember, where was I? What paragraph? What was the meaning of what I was reading? How much time are you able to spend doing something without being distracted? The distraction, the message, or the little light that goes on, or someone who asks you something, an email that comes, whatever it is that takes you away from that activity, unfortunately, very, very little. And it's interesting that among various studies that I was reading about, when someone is used to being distracted, when he's not distracted, he finds ways to distract himself. He's not able to stay. When one is used to being distracted, 10 times during an hour, that the time that someone isn't distracted, that person looks for something to distract himself. Oh, I didn't receive any kind of document. Let me find something. What's the problem? And what does this have to do with what we were talking about before? During our day, the energy that we have, using another more technical term, our ability to elaborate data is limited. If I use that to just file documents, I won't be able to use that to deepen my understanding for reading. When our mind is constantly used up by our senses, it's not able to deepen one's understanding. And even worse, I don't know, but it goes together. What is not able to create. And creativity requires silence. even neurologically speaking, creativity is when new new neurons, new connections are created. So even sometimes just doing nothing is that, is very, very precious. These precious moments that we call boredom. We need to to feel this boredom, to transcend it, to then create. Otherwise, even when we say what what I see is not everything that is, but we just don't give ourselves the time to see something different. To see something different, we don't give ourselves that time. I mean, what did Trump say today? Who cares? He's really good. He's a good comedian. He's really good at getting us to focus on something that he wants us to focus on. But that time where he did that, I don't even know what term to use. It just goes beyond words. When he made himself, he shared that photo of himself as the Pope. The attention of most of us goes to where it's what bad taste, it's offensive, that's horrible. But what's the real question here? What does he not want us to see today? I mean, it's a game of prestige. I do something here, so you don't see what I'm doing over here. It's all there. But in the meantime, I have other things to put my attention on, and we have a quantity of information that we see. We just stay on that superficial level of filing documents that keeps us from being able to deepen our understanding, and we become more and more easily manipulated. You can see that. That's why it's so important for us to stop, to have those moments of silence, of meditation, of reading, walking, being silent, create moments to be able to do these things. Breathe with awareness. If we don't create these spaces, these moments, we won't have the means to be able to look at our at the way that we see reality. And there's another mechanism that happens, and I don't want to go on too long about this, just touch on it briefly. When there's a lot of distraction, something that happens is that we become kind of addicted to it because it's new, newness, novelty creates dopamine, and we like it. So we create this habit of becoming distracted because every distraction is a novelty. And so when there is no distraction, we look for them. The fact that there's so much information to manage that creates this inner feeling of hurry. Let's imagine I'm at work. And my hours at work are those hours. But if I need to read something, read something deeply, that's one thing. But if I have to just, file documents, my feeling is that it never ends. And then there's more that I'm able to manage because papers are documents are just coming left, right, and center. And then I know I need to read that document, and this generates a feeling of hurry. I mean, I want to read that document, but I'm not able because distractions are there. So the first distraction is that first distraction is overcome, but I'm afraid that there's another one is going to come, and I live that like a threat, and I'm activated. My cortisol is high, and it's difficult to sleep. In the morning, I activate myself with coffee or whatever it is. I don't sleep enough because to try to close my mind, I entertain myself with passive things. Have you ever gotten to the point where you're so tired you haven't been able to rest well? It seems crazy. If I'm tired, why am I not sleeping? It's very simple. Historically speaking, before these strange times that we're living before, but when a person wasn't sleeping, it was for one reason. There was an imminent threat. So when our system, when there's, our body would tell us when there is a threat, I stay in a state of alert. But it doesn't mean that I'm not using up energy. I'm using up even more energy because I'm constantly alert. And to be able to get out of that, one point is to meditate, to breathe with awareness, diminish, stay in silence, diminish that enormous quantity of information that we receive, stop multitasking. We're not able. And someone said, so when I said it's not possible, then someone says, well, you say that because you're not a woman. I mean, obviously I'm not a woman, but I mean, one thing is holding the baby while you're cooking. Another thing is, trying to read something while you're managing other information that's arriving. This job that we do with our mind, where we go from one thing, we jump from one thing to another, it just uses up so much energy. And I share one study that I read the other day. I talked about it the other day, or I don't know where I was, talking about distraction. What happens is this: they took an office job, the same office job, and they had the people do this job, and then do an IQ test. They do the test, and then they would repeat the same, and then they would the person would redo that same job with distractions and without distractions, normal distractions like the little message that comes or someone who interrupts and asks for something, you know, or even just seeing that the message arrives, or another notification from the news, just our everyday distractions. And then they would do the IQ test. So then they would do it. They would do the IQ test with the distractions. It was less than 10 points. So when someone who is drugged, for example, one's using marijuana, it's -5. In other words, when you need to do a task, when you're distracted, is worse than being stoned. Just from an cognitive point of view, an intellectual point of view, hoping that it doesn't leave the same the same negative side effects. So the point really, we need to give space to ourselves, be away from these distractions, so that we're also be aware of our ignorance in the good way. Say, I see this because I'm able to get to this point, but it doesn't mean it's the only thing that's there. So that we can allow ourselves to see others beyond the I and the my. We need space for this without distraction, and this is something that we can all give to ourselves. And it's not a question of how many hours we work. It's about how much we allow ourselves to be bombarded with information. How much we allow ourselves to use up all the energy we have with useless things. And very often I come back to this subject because I have this feeling that's stronger and stronger, that if we don't actually look at this point, everything else is going to be harder and harder. And the path that Buddha transmitted, the greatest tool we have is our own mind. But when in our mind the space to practice Dharma is very small because it's all used up by other things, it becomes incredibly hard. And this happens here, the way it happens. I mean, it happens also at the monastery of Tashi Lumpo in Tibet. I mean, it happens to it happens to those who, the poorest to the richest, the most learned to the most uneducated. But we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect ourselves. Do this for ourselves. And I can assure you, at the beginning there'll be all the signs of abstinence, anxiety, and tension, because that object of distraction is missing. We need to allow ourselves to get bored. Don't be afraid of boredom. And with the boredom, one can actually, one can rest, because that threat is no longer there. So it's like we can finally pick up that document to read. We don't need to file other things, but I'll fall asleep. Because I'm no longer under threat, and I can finally rest. And after that deep rest, maybe a couple times, then little by little I can regain my strength and finally read what I needed to read, deepen my understanding. And I wanted to say today something very, very nice. This evening at 5 p.m. So it's 17 o'clock, 5 p.m., same thing. Venerable Pasura will come. He's a friend. He's a Theravada monk. He's a disciple of Lumpur Tata, one of my masters, a master who was here with us. And he's one of the main disciples of Lumpur Tata. Lumpur Tata, to give you an example, he heads a Buddhist organization, and I asked him how many members, registered members he had. They're absolutely enormous. I've been there to events with 150,000 people, and they have an enormous structure. And of his many, many disciples, Venerable Pasura is one of his closest disciples. He asked him to go to the West because he has this approach, this more modern approach. He's a beautiful, beautiful person. And so I don't know exactly what he will teach, but being, listening to the Dharma from a different point of view, I invite all of you, those who you can, to come. One, also to honor him. I think he's coming now from Belgium. They have many centers in Europe, and he's responsible. And ours is the only center outside of their centers where they're coming to teach. His master was very, very close to Lama Ganchen. They had a particular friendship. So he'll come today, and I ask those who can come. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to listen to a different approach. And next week, next Monday, same time at 5 p.m., we will have Monday and Tuesday another Lama coming, Kundalini Rinpoche, who was a disciple, a friend of Lama Ganchen, with a different approach. A very, very well-learned person, a tremendous amount of knowledge. If you want to ask him anything during, if you want to, he knows everything, all the names and the dates, all the things that I don't have, but he has very, very tremendous amount of knowledge. And I asked him to teach about the characteristics of our lineage, something quite specific, and he has great knowledge about it. And then, so here Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday he'll be in Milan. He's coming from India, so please come to out of respect, to honor him, also to also have this experience of a different approach, so you're not always just getting bored with me.
Losan tempe dreme sasum ge drove munsel taktu ne gyurchi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang drame chiki pela longche chin sadan lamge yönte rabzo ne dorje change kopa nyur tob sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin Ninsen taktu delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lop kuncho sumki ngodru trashi shu.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to receive all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Tomorrow at the Kumpen, there will also be Venerable Pasura who are giving teachings at the Kumpen Lama Ganchen tomorrow in Milan.